You turned my son into a stranger in my own house, and you want me to thank you for it? I was there for him, Thatcher. That's all I did. You didn't just show up, you replaced me, piece by piece, and you knew exactly what you were doing. He came to me, I didn't force anything. Yeah, kids go where the candy is, Ames. That doesn't make you a father. I heard my son tell his coach he wishes his uncle was his real father. My name is Thatcher, and I need to tell this story from the beginning because if I start at the part that broke me, none of it will make sense. I'm 37. I'm a site superintendent for a commercial construction company outside of Asheville. I'm on the job site before the sun comes up, and sometimes the last one to leave. The hours are brutal, the pay is good, and the trade-off is that I miss things. School plays, soccer practice, Wednesday pizza nights. I've missed more bedtimes than I can count, and every time I walk in at 8:30 and my son is already asleep, I feel it like something pressing on my chest. My son Beckett is 10, smart, quiet, observant, the kind of kid who watches a room before he walks into it. He's got my wife Sloane's eyes and my stubbornness, and he's the best thing I've ever been part of. Sloane and I have been married 12 years. She works mornings at a physical therapy office and handles afternoons with Beck. Our marriage isn't broken, it's just tired. We don't fight much, but we don't talk the way we used to. We run the house like coworkers managing the same project. She handles school, meals, and scheduling. I handle mortgage, insurance, and repairs. We pass each other in the kitchen and say things like, "Did you sign the permission slip?" and "The dryer's making noise again." Then there's my brother Ames. Ames is 33, single, no kids, works remotely in digital marketing. He's got a nice apartment, a flexible schedule, and all the free time in the world. Ames is the kind of guy people like immediately. Easy smile, good with conversation, remembers what you told him 3 months ago, and brings it up like it matters. My mother, Laureen, has always loved him best, though she'd deny it with her last breath. Ames started coming around more about 2 years ago. He said he wanted to be more involved with Beckett. I thought that was great. I mean that sincerely. I was glad someone could be there when I couldn't. He started picking Beck up from school on Tuesdays and Thursdays. He took him to soccer practice when Sloane had appointments. He helped him build a model rocket for the science fair. He bought him a guitar and spent weekends teaching him chords in our living room while I was on a job site pouring concrete. At first, I felt grateful. Then I felt relieved. Then, slowly, I started feeling something I couldn't name. It lived in small moments that didn't seem like anything on their own, but added up to something heavy. Like when I'd come home, and Beck would be laughing about something Ames said during dinner, and when I asked what was funny, he'd say, "You had to be there, Dad." Or the time I offered to take him fishing on a Saturday, and he said, "Ames already said we'd go to the batting cages." Or the night I tried to help him with math homework, and he pushed the paper toward me and said, "Ames does it a different way. His way is easier." I remember sitting in the kitchen after that one, just staring at the wall. My wife was on the phone in the other room. My son was in his bedroom playing guitar, and I felt like a guest in a house I was paying the mortgage on. I told myself I was being jealous, that it was petty and small. My brother was doing something good, and I was turning it into a problem because of my own guilt about working too much. Sloane reinforced that. One night after Beck was asleep, I brought it up at the kitchen table. "Don't you think Ames is around a lot?" She didn't even look up. "He's helping, Thatcher. You want me to tell him to stop because it makes you uncomfortable?" I didn't say that. "Then what are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe we should set some kind of boundary. Like, he doesn't need to be here 4 days a week." A boundary with your brother for spending time with your son? Do you hear yourself? He picks Beck up so I don't have to rearrange my entire schedule. He takes him to practice so I can finish work. He's not doing anything wrong. I know he's not doing anything wrong. I'm saying it feels like a lot. It feels like a lot because you're comparing yourself to him. And that's not his problem, Thatcher. That's yours. I dropped it. I dropped it because she was right in the way that facts can be right without being the whole truth. Ames was helping. But something about the shape of that help didn't sit straight, and I couldn't explain it without sounding like a jealous man who was threatened by his own brother being kind to his kid. My mother made it worse. Laureen started telling people at church how wonderful Ames was with Beckett. She told her friend Dorothy that Ames was like a second father to that boy. When I heard that through Sloane's mother, I called Laureen. "Mom, can you not describe Ames as Beckett's second father?" "Oh, stop it. People are just saying he's good with him." "He's his uncle. That's a fine thing to be." "Well, maybe if you were home more, people wouldn't notice how much Ames fills in." That one landed exactly where she aimed it. I want to be clear about something. Ames never said anything negative about me to my face. He didn't have to. He built something that spoke for itself. He was present when I wasn't. He was patient when I was tired. He made everything look effortless, and next to him, I looked like the father who showed up late to his own life. The turning point came on a Saturday in October. Beckett had a soccer game at the county park. I took the morning off specifically to be there. I got there 10 minutes early, set up my chair in the bleachers, and felt good about myself for the first time in weeks. Then Ames showed up. He sat right next to me, coffee in hand, sunglasses on, looking like he'd been doing this every weekend for years. Because he had. Beck saw us both from the field and waved. Then he jogged over. Not to both of us, to Ames. He handed him his water bottle and said, "Hold this for me, and can you film the first half? Coach said I'm starting." I was sitting right there, right next to Ames. He didn't even glance at me. Ames took the bottle and said, "I got you, buddy. Go warm up." Beck ran off. Ames pulled out his phone like it was routine. I sat there holding nothing. After the game, Beck's team gathered around Coach Parisi near the equipment shed for their post-game huddle. I was walking toward them to congratulate Beck on a good game. I got close enough to hear voices, but I was behind the shed wall, just out of sight. Coach Parisi was talking to each kid individually, asking them who they wanted to give their Player of the Day wristband to. Some kids said their moms. One said his sister. When it got to Beckett, he said something I will never unhear as long as I live. "I want to give it to my Uncle Ames. He's the one who practices with me every week. I wish he was my real dad." He said it casually, not with anger or cruelty, just the way a 10-year-old says something that feels true in his world because no one ever gave him a reason to question it. Coach Parisi laughed a little awkwardly and said, "Well, your dad's a good guy too." And Beckett shrugged and said, "Yeah, but he's never here." I stood behind that shed for a long time. My hands were shaking. Parents walked past me. A woman from Beck's team asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. I walked back to my truck and sat in the driver's seat with the engine off until Sloane texted asking where I disappeared to. That night I didn't say anything. I watched Beck show Ames his wristband at dinner. I watched Ames put it on and pretend it was the greatest thing he'd ever received. I watched my wife smile at both of them, and I understood that I had been slowly, invisibly replaced in my own home by the one person I never thought to guard against. But the irreversible part came 3 weeks later. I found out that Ames had enrolled Beckett in a weekend basketball clinic without telling me. He'd signed the registration forms, paid the fee, listed himself as the emergency contact, and put his own address as the secondary pickup location. Sloane knew about it. She said Ames offered to handle it because I was always working weekends, and she didn't want to add another thing to my plate. He listed himself as the emergency contact, Sloane, for our son. It's a sports clinic, Thatcher, not a custody agreement. He put his address on the form as a pickup location. Because he's the one picking Beck up on Saturdays. It's practical. It makes sense. Since when does my brother get to make decisions about my kid's activities, his schedule, his paperwork, without asking me? Maybe since you stopped being available to make them yourself. I stood very still when she said that. She must have seen something in my face because she softened. "I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm saying he offered to help, and I said yes because I was exhausted and you weren't here. I'm not here because I'm at work, paying for this house, paying for Beck's school, paying for everything that makes this life run. I know that. Then stop treating me like an absent father because I have a job." She looked at the floor. "That's not what I meant." "That's exactly what you meant. and it's what Ames has been counting on. That sentence opened something in me that couldn't close again. Not because Sloane was cruel, because there was just enough truth in what she said to make everything else invisible. She couldn't see what Ames was doing because he positioned himself as the answer to a problem I couldn't solve from a construction site at 6 in the morning. I called Ames the next day, kept my voice steady. You enrolled Beck in a basketball clinic and put yourself as his emergency contact. Yeah, Sloane said it was fine. Sloane isn't the only parent. I wasn't trying to step on anything, Thatcher. Then why didn't you call me? Then, very calmly, because you're hard to reach. You're always on a site. I have a phone. You don't always answer. I would answer a call about my son. Okay, I hear you. I'll loop you in next time. But he didn't, because there was no next time. I made sure of that. I didn't explode. I didn't give a speech. I started with the schedule. I talked to my project manager and shifted to a Monday through Thursday schedule with longer days so Fridays were mine. I took a pay cut. I didn't care. I started picking Beck up from school on Fridays and handling all weekend activities myself. I told Ames directly that I'd be covering Tuesdays and Thursdays going forward. All of them, he said. All of them. Beck's going to ask why. Then I'll tell him his dad's around more. That should be a good thing, right? He stared at me. For the first time, I saw something behind the easy smile, something territorial, and I realized this was never just about being a good uncle. Ames didn't have a family. He'd quietly adopted mine. The next 2 months were the hardest of my life. Beck resisted everything. He asked constantly why Ames wasn't coming around as much. He threw a tantrum one Saturday because I took him to the park instead of letting Ames take him to a movie. He told me I was boring. He told me Ames never made him do chores before they went out. He said, "You only want to be my dad when it's easy." That one almost broke me, because a 10-year-old doesn't come up with that sentence on his own. He heard it somewhere. He absorbed it from a household that had been subtly teaching him for 2 years that his father's absence meant his father didn't care. I didn't argue. I didn't trash Ames. I didn't sit Beck down and explain the economics of being a family's sole financial provider. I just kept showing up. Every Friday, every Saturday, every time he said he'd rather be somewhere else, I stayed in the room and waited. One night he refused to eat dinner because I made pasta instead of the tacos Ames always ordered from the place on 5th Street. He pushed his plate away and said, "This isn't how Ames does it." I looked at him. "I'm not Ames. I'm your dad, and we're having pasta." He stared at me like I'd taken something from him. Then he picked up his fork and ate. Slowly, angry, but he ate. Lorene called me twice to tell me I was being unreasonable. "Ames loves that boy. You're punishing him for caring." "I'm parenting my own kid, Mom. That's all." "You're shutting him out because you're insecure. And you've been propping him up as my replacement because it makes you feel like your favorite son finally has the family you always wanted him to have." She hung up. We haven't spoken since. That was 2 months ago. Ames tried once more. He came to the house on a Friday afternoon. He stood in the driveway and asked to talk. "You turned my son into a stranger in my own house, and you want me to thank you for it?" "I was there for him, Thatcher. That's all I did." "You didn't just show up. You replaced me, piece by piece, and you knew exactly what you were doing." He came to me. I didn't force anything. "Yeah, kids go where the candy is, Ames. That doesn't make you a father." He looked at the ground. "I never said I was his father." "You signed his forms. You made yourself his contact. You took my place at every practice, every game, every weekend. You didn't need to say it. You built it. So what do you want me to do?" "I want you to stop. Completely. No more pickups, no more weekends, no more showing up at games like you're his dad. And if Beck asks for me, then I'll be the one who's there to answer." He left. He hasn't come back. It's been 3 months now. Beckett still mentions Ames sometimes. He asked me last week if Ames was mad at him. I told him no. I told him Ames was busy with work. He accepted it the way kids accept things they don't fully believe but aren't ready to challenge. Sloane and I started couples counseling a month ago. Not because we're falling apart, but because I told her what Beck said to his coach that day at the soccer field. She cried. She said she didn't realize it had gone that far. I believe her. I also believe she didn't want to see it because Ames made her life easier in ways I couldn't. I'm rebuilding something that shouldn't have needed rebuilding. Friday mornings, I make Beck breakfast. We go to the batting cages together now. He's starting to show me things on his guitar, the same guitar Ames bought him. I don't love that, but I sit on the couch and listen. Last Saturday, he fell asleep during a movie and leaned into my shoulder. He hasn't done that in over a year. Lorene told my cousin Gavin that I destroyed the family by pushing Ames away. Gavin called and asked if I wanted to respond. I said no. The people who watched it happen and said nothing don't get to narrate how it ended. I don't hate my brother. I hate what he built while pretending he was helping, and I hate that it almost worked. Last night, Beckett came into the kitchen while I was doing dishes. He stood there for a minute like he was waiting for permission to say something. Dad? Yeah, bud. Can you come to my game next Saturday? Not just to watch, I mean like stand near the bench so the other kids know you're there. I turned off the faucet and looked at him. I'll be there. He nodded and walked out of the room, and I stood there with wet hands thinking about something I've never been able to ask anyone out loud. If the people closest to you slowly made your own child feel like you didn't matter, and your kid believed them because he was too young to know the difference, would you blame the kid, the people who built it, or yourself for not seeing it sooner? And does the answer even change anything?